So, the chapter starts off with Carpaccio, still conscious despite the violent smack Mash gave him last chapter with his iron tennis racket wand. Which might I remind you is incredible heavy, and taking into account Mash's superhuman strength, even if he held back a lot on that swing, which didn't seem to be the case from the previous chapter, Carpaccio still has a much harder head than I gave him credit for, but it doesn't look like he'll be getting up any time soon. His eyes speak to someone who is in as much shock as they are in pain, which is not surprising given this is his first time ever feeling actual pain. Moving on, the crowd begins to react to what is to them a major upset, a complete unexpected result. The fear and unease is clear in their expressions as they speak about how Carpaccio was a savant, chosen by a Master Cane, but despite that Mash used him as nothing but a tennis wall. It is not hard to see where their fear comes from. Their entire civilization is a semi-religious one, where magic is viewed as the sign of the gods' favor, but despite that someone, a person who in the view of their entire civilization should have been put to death at birth, just beat one of those who directly received the blessing of the gods. It would not be a surprise if they started to view Mash as a bad omen or a demon, given how he has begun to tear down the safe haven they had in magic. Depending on how the next few fights with him go, that fear could grow to such levels that even once he wins, because we all expect him to win this tournament, they still refuse to accept him into their society, viewing him no longer with anger and disgust but fear and distrust. Either way, I do not think that Mash's trials will end with becoming a divine visionary. Back in the manga, Wahlberg comments on Mash's complete victory over a Master Cane user. Although I am certain that Carpaccio was not the most proficient user, still being young and inexperienced. I wonder how the headmaster is taking it. His expression to me speaks of intrigue rather than concern or worry, and his words do not give anything away about his own thoughts. A very Dumbledore character, but perhaps even more standoffish in his support of the main character. Meanwhile, back in the arena, Carpaccio is contemplating the sensation he was in, questioning if it was in fact pain. With every beat of his heart causing his body to be racked with never-before-felt sensations, while being unable to stop the blood flowing from his skull. Questioning if pain is always so awful and frightening as he looks over to Finn, remembering the pain he had inflicted upon him, Carpaccio is stunned by the fact Finn would put up with such a thing for someone else's sake. And now, we can confirm, at the very least in the case of Carpaccio right now, the wand's blessing either takes time to reactivate after being broken or is permanently removed, since the angel didn't reconstitute itself after being destroyed. I wonder if the Master Cane will reject him now. That would be an interesting way to take it, but who knows, we still have much to learn about these wands, their blessings and the so-called gods who grant those blessings. So as Carpaccio watches Mash help Finn to his feet, he remembers what Mash said to him, questioning if he would as bravely stand against him as Finn stood against Carpaccio. And that is when he admits, he is completely outmatched, the difference in strength being clear for all to see. Despite being an antagonistic force, I can see him coming around to supporting Mash. After all, it is a common trope for protagonists in shonen series to turn once enemies into allies. We have already seen that with Lance, so why not add Carpaccio to the team? Having a Master Cane user, if he still retains it after the match, by his side would certainly bolster Mash's political power and perhaps soothe a few tempers, or at least keep them from trying something stupid, although I do not think that will happen anytime soon, at least not until this entire arc is over and done with. So as Mash walks away, supporting Finn on his shoulder, he collapses and is presumably taken to get medical attention. We then transition to another point in the cave where we see Carpaccio's two teammates Muhamato and Oreo Morris facing down Margaret Macaron. As they prepare for a fight, Margaret raising his hand to his ear and comments that he hears a re which only serves to confuse the bear, causing him to explain that power and pitch are the same to him. The higher the pitch, the stronger you are in his eyes. Apparently the two of them are just above the very bottom of the spectrum. So, it is impossible for them to show him to the coming of spring, so they should just leave their crystals behind. If that is how he regards these two, I wonder what he thinks of everyone in Mashle's group. Does his ability only recognize magical strength, or does Mashle's physical might also catch his ear? I would think so, given the fact that he has taken an interest in him. As the two remind him that it's 2-on-1, they summon a giant wolf-like creature and send forth a hail or ox to try and attack him. Moore at the very least recognizes that Margaret is as powerful as the last divine visionary candidate, but they are both top class too, so they cannot lose 2-on-1. But we all know how this was going to go. Both their attacks are completely countered, and they are put on the defensive, Margaret's spell sending out what looks like streams of music notes. And according to Oreo, it is a beginner spell he is using to counter them. Unable to believe another student is so much more powerful, their defense crush, they get blown back and Oreo finds themselves unable to get up. That when Margaret explains that his power is a T, the highest pitch on the scale, so he hopes that the difference between them is clear, as he says that he has a malicious look in his eyes as he looks down upon them before they collapse and Margaret turns to leave. Right at that very moment the announcer declares that one team has been defeated, so the test is now over. We then get to see comedically notice he did not do anything. And so, they come back through the giant doors into the arena, where Mash and proceed to celebrate with pretending to interview Mash, calling him the MVP, to which Mash tells him he wants a scream puff, not surprising, it's been a while since he had his last cream puff. Right at that very moment everything went very quiet, something which is noted by Mash himself, while Wahlberg comments that what is to come next will be Mash's greatest trial. Meanwhile the crowd is beginning to sweat as they recognize that the only person who could give Rain a run for his money last year has arrived. And at that very moment Margaret appears behind Mash, saying that the ripening summer is here. So, it seems like we are about to get a fight between Mash and Margaret next chapter, or at the very least a setup for them to fight. Either way it seems like things are only going to get worse from here on out for Mash, but either way. I've been the Anonymous Weeb and this has been my review of Mashle Chapter 55, feel free to leave a like, and if you want to be notified about when I upload a video feel free to subscribe and hit the bell icon. I'm told it lets you know when my videos go live.